Authorities are already imposing water rationing as reservoirs have hit historic low levels in the most populous city in the Americas. 21 million people in Mexico City are now in the grips of a severe water shortage. And this is real, folks. There are whole districts of the city that are not getting water services through their pipes. They are only getting water trucks, sometimes 4 to 7 days. Not 4 or 7 days out of a week. Every 4 or 7 days they are getting a water truck. Friends, this is something that you need to be taking to heart. While the infrastructure is decaying and falling apart in Mexico City due to overuse, the question is, what would that look like where you are? Are you prepared for your water service to go offline? What if you need to have a boil water warning in your area? What happens if there is a cracked water main and you lose water pressure? Friends, if your house loses water, that's as good as the entire county losing water. Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Poplar Report. I'm Steve Poplar. I'm an accountant by trade, but I've lived around the world a little bit. I spent a couple of years overseas in a third world country where I had to carry my water in buckets up 3 stories to get to my apartment. When I would go to my office, we had to carry buckets of water in, and let's just say there wasn't a flush toilet. We had an outhouse that was made of cobbled metal parts, and part of which was made from a van. And it's just a hole in the ground, friends. Anyway, so I have a little bit of experience with water shortages and water issues, but let's talk about what's going on down in Mexico City, right? Mexico City, 21 million people. It's bigger by population than New York City. Now, I know you may immediately think about Mexico and say, well, you know, things are falling apart. Mexico City is known as one of the more metropolitan cities in the world. It's where a lot of expats go to live for relatively cheap, but up to the same kind of standards that you can get at some places like in Europe or in like major U.S. cities and such. In some cases, it's nicer. But the problem is that they've built this city on top of a dried up lake bed. And 70% of their water actually comes from the aquifers underground. And they're seeing the water table drop by 20 inches per year. They're having to pump it up further and further and further. They are draining their aquifers. The other 30% comes from rainwater that comes into the reservoirs, but the reservoirs are already down to, like I said, historically low levels. So what can we do about this? If you don't have water, that's going to be a really difficult thing to conjure up. Now, if you have time, you can wait for it to rain and you can do things when you have rain and precipitation. Some of you guys are in different parts of the country and different parts of the world where it's a little drier. Where it's dry, you may not get rain very frequently. Some of you guys only get rain a couple times a year and in certain seasons. And you have to stock up enough water during that season in order to get you through the rest of the year. People have been doing this for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. You can do this. People can do rain catchment systems and survive. People do that off-grid, and if necessary, you and your family can do that yourselves as well. Now, if you live in an area like I do in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where it seems to always be raining, we see the sun every so often, and that's really an encouragement. But it rains a lot. And so for me, what that looks like is Southern Prepper One brought this suggestion out, and it's a very helpful suggestion. 5-gallon buckets with umbrellas. Clean, new umbrellas. You punch a hole in the top of the umbrella where it's inverted, so you have the funnel funneling into the 5-gallon bucket. Now, is that going to collect a ridiculous amount of water? No, it's not, but we're trying to get some drinking water. You know, you can also have some clean tarps, get some small, 6x8 tarps or relatively small tarps that are clean, that are still in the package, right? And when it starts raining, you can go out and you can lay out those tarps and make sure it's funneling into something that's going to catch the water, right? Put it out right when it starts raining. You may have to weight it down if there's some wind too, right? And you can catch a lot of water. This is going to be very, very clean. Now, this is one of the best ways to go. You can, if you have a stream or water source nearby, there are ways that you can purify that depending on what's upstream. That's the first thing you want to know. If you have running water or you have a lake or you have a pond on your property, do you know what's upstream? And you need to know about livestock that's upstream, because that will potentially pollute the water with biological parasites and stuff like that. So know what's upstream of your water source. Do you know where the streams kind of flow? That's a big deal. If you have capabilities to drive a well, or if you already have a well on your property, that's good. If you don't have a well, you can potentially dig a well, but digging is usually not the best way to go at it. You can drive a well if you purchase pipe and such for that, where you basically get a tip and then the pipes screw in on that and you pound it into the ground, and then you put another section on the pipe and you pound that into the ground, and you just keep going down into it. It's usually designed for like sand, but it can also work in clay as long as you don't hit rocks. It takes a little bit of trial and error, and you might hit water, you might not. It might be a long ways down to water, or you might hit water relatively soon. But just be aware that there are options for drilling wells or pounding wells. That has been done for thousands of years as well, right? There's the whole thing to that. Now, you can pay a service to go drill the well for you, and that's a thing too. If you have a little more money for that, or if you're going to be really dependent upon that well, go for it. But we have a city. Then that's the real thing. Like if you're out in the country or something like that, you got some options. But if you're in the city, what do you do then? I mean, if there's a water source nearby in a city, you can't drink that, right? If there's like a drainage ditch that goes through the city, you're not going to get water out of that and clean that up. You just can't. So where are you going to get water from? You're dependent upon water services. One of the big things you need to be thinking about in a city is, do you have water storage, right? If the water truck's only going to come one day out of 7, then do you have enough water storage in your home to store up water for 7 days? Do you have ways of carrying a large quantity of water? Do you have some good quality buckets? 2 5-gallon buckets per person that are going to be carrying water is a good idea. If you can get a stick as well, a heavy-duty stick to carry the 2 buckets, that will make your life a whole lot easier. Trust me on that, as someone who has carried 5-gallon buckets up flights of stairs for months and months. Believe me, anything you can do to make your life easier is something you should do. What I did personally in my apartment that I did not have running water in was I had like this big, it was bigger than a trash can. It was a big plastic, maybe 30, 40 gallons. It was like a plastic giant bucket without a handle or anything like that. And what I do is I go down with my buckets and I fill them up down where they had running water. The water just kind of always ran. You just kind of put your buckets under that. You didn't turn it on or off. It just was always running. It's like a fountain. You fill them up there, and then I'd carry them up and I'd dump them into my water reservoir. And I had to make sure that, every time I was going by or every time I had some time, I'd go down and get some more water, and I'd keep filling up my reservoir, right? So that I'd always have water in there. And this is something that you need to be thinking about. In your kitchen, you should have a reservoir or the capabilities to put a reservoir in there. Some of you guys are already using like a Berkey filter or some kind of thing like that, and it's got, 4 or 5 gallons worth of capacity in there, and that's not bad. But you may need more burst capacity than that, something that you can fill the Berkey up with water. Now, personally, I don't have a Berkey. I have a Katahdin filter, which is like a Swiss company. That's what I used overseas, and I'm just more familiar with that. It's a plastic shell as opposed to the steel, and it's still got the ceramic. It's got ceramic filters in there as opposed to Berkey. I think uses more like charcoal-based filters. I'm more of a ceramic filter kind of guy, because that's what we used overseas once again, and I didn't get sick off that water because I'd certainly tested that. And when I drink water that wasn't purified through that filter, let me tell you, I got sick. I got the sulfuric burps from Giardia like so many times. I learned that popping those Pepto-Bismol tablets cures that. And there's scientific studies that will show you out there that Pepto-Bismol or the bismuth does actually kill Giardia, which is something you should definitely have a stockpile of too, right? Definitely have some Pepto-Bismol tablets. You don't need the name brand stuff. You can get the bismuth. You can get either the swallowable pills, or you can get the chewables. If you want to get the liquid stuff, you can do that too, but I think the chewables and the pills are the most useful. If you start feeling your tummy doing some turns up and down, you just start taking the pills. Anyway, so water catchment kind of thing outside to bring in water, and then have a reservoir, preferably in the kitchen or right near the kitchen. You can use a trash can, a brand new trash can, that will work. It's not the best, but some sort of large container of water that you can dip buckets into. You can take a lot of water out. I had like a dipper. It was like it's like a giant ladle, but it's like almost like a bucket size, and it's like a pan. Okay, you could actually use a pan. That'd actually probably be pretty good. You could use a pan to dip from that. Just make sure the outside's nice and clean, so you're not like polluting the water every time you do that. And then you pour that into either your water filter, or you put it directly into your cooking. Because if it's cooking, you don't need to put it through the water filter, because everything's going to die when you boil the water anyway. An electric kettle is fantastic use. You put the water in there, boil it, and poof, it's already like nice and clean, right? Now, of course, that doesn't get rid of chemicals, but that's a whole nother thing. Most filters don't really take care of chemicals either. Anyway, so in these cities, we're seeing what's happening right now is that water tankers are coming in every so often. If a major city in the United States were to have significant water issues, or if a boil advisory, we're already seeing this is what will happen, they will bring in pallets and pallets and pallets of bottled water, okay? I've seen this in disaster relief down in Florida for hurricanes, everything like that. This is the go-to thing that they will do in the U.S. is they will bring pallets and pallets full of bottled water, because they have that on hand. And the other thing they're going to do is they're going to start bringing tankers of trucks that are going to be, basically they drive up the tanker to a place that has tap water. They fill it up with tap water, and then they drive it over to the area that needs the tap water. And then they just, they fill up either straight off the truck, or they fill up an on-site tanker with that has adapters, so that lots of little dispensers, so that people can, so it's not like one person at a time at a tanker. It's like, 5, 10, 15 people at a time at this dispensing station. So they'll set up these type of stations. Now, optimally, they'll always have water in the stations for as many people can get there. They'll get all the water they can, right? Don't be shy about this. If there's a disaster where you are, and they have all these palletfuls of bottled water, go pick up bottled water. I've been at enough disaster sites. The latest one was Kentucky flooding, right? And we just had stacks of bottled water, and we're like, take it. We didn't bring it. The National Guard brought that up, and they just put it there. And all we need to do is make a little phone call, and the National Guard will bring more of it. So don't be shy about getting the bottled water. Don't be where you're running real close to the edge, because what happens if you suddenly get sick, or what happens if someone in your family gets sick and you suddenly now have a problem and you were already running low on your water? If you can't turn that knob on your tap and water come out, you need to get as far ahead on water as you can while you're healthy and while things are good. When it's not raining, it's not storming, the bridge isn't out between you and where the water is. When you are dealing with something as essential as drinking water, please stock up, right? Stock up now. It's super easy to stock up now. You can fill up containers with tap water right now and put it on the shelf. I was just watching Leave the World Behind. I finally got around to watching that on Netflix. It's a weird, creepy movie. But the thing that hit me was like, these people are so unprepared, and it immediately got me thinking, like, what's like, if I knew that the power was going off, and I knew everything was going down tomorrow, what would I wish that I'd done today? And the first thing I thought about was like, man, I just wish I had more water. Water is just so... Water is going to be a real difficult thing. When the grid goes down, water is going to be a real difficult problem. And the more tap water you can get stocked up now is going to make your life so much easier. And if you have a family, if it's more than just you, you're going to go through that. You're going to go through that water super, super fast. And don't use your tap water that's in bottles for anything other than drinking and cooking. Okay. Maybe even just for drinking. Use other water. Use water that's not super clean for just the bottled tap water and bottled packages of water for drinking. Use the other stuff. Use rainwater for cleaning first. Use all that kind of stuff as best you can. But water situations are serious. When I was down in South Africa, it was a bunch of years ago, they were having a water issue there, and it got a lot worse after I left. And Cape Town, South Africa, it was like they had this water crisis, and they were shutting, after I just left there, I was looking on the news, I was just like, that is insane what they're going through. But they squandered their water. They had a reservoir full of water, but for environmental reasons, they let a whole bunch of it out, and they were wasting it for a lot of intensive agriculture when they knew that they were going to get close on running out of drinking water. And then they started rationing residential people's water, and they started shutting off areas of the city. And this is what happens and has happened many times in recent years. This is not some scary, random Steve's thought process where he's making stuff up. Go down to Mexico City right now, or if it's more comfortable for you, pull up the news article. Type into Google, Mexico City, water, and see what comes up, because you're going to see that whole districts of that city are living off of tankers that are coming whenever the government feels, or whenever it's convenient for them. There's already been rioting in several areas where water commission offices have been attacked. People are very upset, and they're living on the edge. And of course, it's the water that exists is still going to the rich areas of the city, but the poor areas of the city are the ones living off tankers now. So, file that one away for you as well. If you live in an apartment building, this is especially significant and important for you to be thinking about. If you're living in the city, you need to be thinking about that, and you need to be thinking about where would the water show up? Is there like a municipal office or a city office nearby? Are there shopping centers nearby that they often set up in shopping centers that people, like whether it's like a Walmart or a large parking lot, they might set up at someplace like that. You may not know where these places are going to be until they announce them during the crisis, but do you know your neighbors well enough that you can get information on where these places are set up when it does? All right, those are just some thoughts. If you guys have some other thoughts, please do pop them down in the comments down below on what you can do for water purification. You can store some chemicals like pole shock that will deal with the biological stuff. Chemical stuff in your water is going to be really difficult to get rid of, and you're really only going to be looking at activated charcoal. And activated charcoal is going to get used up relatively fast in your filters if you're running chemicals through there. They can only absorb so much. So you need water that doesn't have chemicals in it. You can deal with the bacteria and that kind of stuff by boiling. You can deal with it by using UV exposure. If you have good bottles, like 2-liter bottles, plastic bottles that are clear, You can put water in them and stick it out in the sunlight, and sunlight can disinfect them. Be careful with glass, because glass often, most of the stuff on the shelf has UV coating on the outside of that glass. So the glass will block the UV, and so as much as you think that putting the glass bottle out there would be better than the plastic actually would let the UV through. That will kill all the bad stuff in there, whereas the glass will actually block the UV, and you won't actually get any benefit from that. So be thinking those things through, what you can do. You can put pans of water out in the sunlight. Just make sure there's no UV filter between the sunlight and the water, and that will purify it. You generally need to put it out for, I think, like 8 hours of direct sunlight. If it's a little less sunlight, you might need to put it out for a day and a half. There's guides online and stuff like that for that, using UV exposure to purify water. And if it's cloudy water, it's going to take a lot longer. So, all right, friends, thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.